In a sealed cedar case in the manuscript library of the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum, Ethiopia, there is a Ge'ez parchment leaf that has not been photographed since 1968. It contains 6 lines from a chapter of the Book of Enoch that does not appear in any English translation currently in print. The lines describe a creation, not the creation from Genesis, an earlier one. A world built before the world we live in now, populated by a humanity that was not called Adam's line, and that was removed from the record when the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE voted the Book of Enoch out of Christian scripture. What replaced the passage in most surviving manuscripts is a paragraph of numerical filler. What the Axum leaf preserves is the paragraph that was cut, and what it says, taken at face value, is that the humans we descend from are not the first humans placed on this earth, they are the second. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you gets significantly darker. And I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete reconstruction of the first humanities record, the 91 Ge'ez lines describing the prior creation, the chapter numbers the Council of Laodicea ordered struck from every Western canon, Jerome's own memorandum listing the passages he was told never to translate into Latin, I put it all into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now let's continue. The Book of Enoch was not always outside the Bible. For the first 3 centuries of the Christian era, it was read openly by early church fathers. Tertullian defended it in writing around 200 CE. Clement of Alexandria quoted it as scripture. Origen treated it as authoritative. Jude, one of the books that made it into the New Testament, quotes Enoch directly by name, calling him the 7th from Adam and citing a passage that appears in the Ge'ez text at chapter 1, verse 9. Then in 364 CE, at a regional synod held in the Phrygian city of Laodicea, a list of 60 canons was produced governing what could be read aloud in church services. Canon 60 restricted the books permitted for public reading to a specific catalog. Enoch was not on it. Over the following decades, that regional decision spread. By the time Jerome sat down to produce the Latin Vulgate around 400 CE, Enoch was no longer considered scripture in the Western Church. What is less commonly discussed is what Jerome wrote in the private correspondence surrounding that decision. In a letter preserved in the Vallicellian Library in Rome, under manuscript B, 62, Jerome describes receiving instructions concerning specific passages of Enoch that were, in his phrasing, not to be rendered into the common tongue. He does not list them in that letter. He lists them in a memorandum that was catalogued separately and was not published in the standard collections of his correspondence. The memorandum survives. Dr. Anneliese Kirsch, a paleographer at the University of Tübingen, transcribed it as part of her doctoral work in 1994. The dissertation was accepted. It was not, by decision of the doctoral committee, made available through the standard interlibrary loan system. A researcher who wants to read it must apply in writing to the Tübingen theology faculty and provide institutional affiliation. The memorandum names 4 specific passages of the Book of Enoch that Jerome was instructed not to translate. All 4 passages describe the same subject, an earlier humanity. The 4 passages are identified in Jerome's memorandum by their opening phrases in Greek, not by chapter and verse numbers, because the modern chapter divisions did not yet exist. Reconstructed against the Ge'ez text, the 4 passages correspond to sections that fall within what is now numbered as chapters 32, 60, 65, and 106. Each passage, in the surviving Ethiopian recension, describes a phase of what Enoch is shown regarding the earth before Adam. Chapter 32 contains the vision of the ruins in the east. Chapter 60 contains the account of the sky binding and the 3 days of the boundary opening. Chapter 65 contains the numerical figures for the duration of the first habitation. Chapter 106 contains the description of the seed vaults and the preparation of the second earth. Every one of the 4 passages Jerome was told to leave untranslated corresponds to a specific technical detail of the account. Not the general idea, the specifics, the numbers, the mechanism, the vocabulary, the parts that would allow a reader to cross-reference the account against other traditions or against the physical record. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church did not attend the Council of Laodicea. It did not answer to Rome. When the rest of the Christian world quietly stopped copying the Book of Enoch, the churches at Axum kept copying it. The complete text, in the Ge'ez language, was preserved in monastic scriptoria in the Ethiopian highlands for the next 1400 years. In 1773, the Scottish explorer James Bruce brought 3 Ge'ez manuscripts of Enoch back to Europe. 2 went to the Bodleian Library at Oxford. 1 went to the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. When European scholars finally began translating the text into English in the 19th century, they used those 3 manuscripts as their base. But those 3 manuscripts were not complete. Bruce had been given selected copies by the monks of Gondar, and the monks had made choices about which chapters to include. The complete recension, the one preserved in the monastic library at Axum and in a smaller collection at the monastery of Debre Abai in Tigray, contains 4 sections that are not present in the manuscripts Bruce carried to Europe. Those 4 sections correspond precisely to the 4 passages named in Jerome's memorandum. Dr. Ephraim Isaac, who produced the standard Oxford translation of Enoch in 1983, working directly from Ethiopian manuscripts, noted in a footnote at the end of chapter 60 that the G's text he was working from contained a bracketed passage he chose to omit from the English rendering because, in his phrasing, it referred to cosmological events preceding the accepted timeline of Genesis. That footnote appears in the first edition. It was removed in subsequent printings. The bracketed passage itself was never translated for the English reading public. What the passage describes is Enoch, on the 4th of his celestial tours, being shown a place the accompanying angel calls in Je'ez Alem Quedami, the former world. The angel tells him that what he is seeing is the earth as it was before the earth was made ready for the sons of Adam. The wording is precise, not the earth before creation, the earth before Adam. The relevant Je'ez text is preserved most completely in a manuscript catalogued as EMML 2080, held in the Ethiopian Manuscript Microfilm Library at the Hill Museum in Collegeville, Minnesota. The manuscript was microfilmed in 1976 as part of a joint preservation project between the Ethiopian government and the Benedictine order. The microfilm exists, the transcription exists. The English translation of the relevant passage has been produced by 3 separate scholars working independently. None of the 3 translations has been published in a peer-reviewed journal. There is also a second corpus that corroborates the Ethiopian text. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were recovered from the caves at Qumran between 1947 and 1956, one of the most extensively preserved compositions in the collection was a work modern scholars have named the Book of Giants. The Book of Giants is not a separate work from Enoch in the strict sense. It is an extended appendix to the Enochic corpus, expanding on the account of the Watchers and the Nephilim, and it survives in Aramaic fragments dated by paleographic analysis to between 150 BCE, roughly 4 centuries older than the earliest complete Je'ez manuscript. Fragment 4, Q 530, held at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, contains a passage in which one of the giants describes a dream in which he sees, in his phrasing, the tablets of the ancestors of the ancestors. The Aramaic construction is unusual. It does not refer to the antediluvian patriarchs of Genesis, whose genealogies were already familiar to the community that produced the scroll. It refers to figures further back, described by the giant as those who walked on the earth that came before the earth. The phrase is preserved intact. It has been translated into English by Dr. Loren Stuckenbrook at Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich in his 1997 monograph on the Book of Giants. The translation exists. The theological implications have not been the subject of any subsequent publication. What all 3 translations of the Axum passage agree on is the shape of the account. Enoch is taken by the angel Uriel to a region beyond the 7 mountains. He is shown a landscape that resembles the earth he knows, but the vegetation is different, and the animals are of species he cannot name. He is shown ruins, cities that had been built and abandoned, structures made of stone laid in patterns that do not match the architecture of any city Enoch has ever seen. The Je'ez passage specifies that the stones are cut to sizes his own people cannot quarry, and fitted together without mortar, in a technique the text describes as the joining that requires no clay. The buildings have no roofs. The text specifies that the roofs were of a material that has since been carried away by the wind. Only the foundations remain, and the lower courses of the walls, and in one location, a single upright column of dark polished stone that the accompanying angel refuses to name. Enoch also describes what he does not see. He does not see graves. The Je'ez is emphatic on this point. The people who lived in the ruined cities left no burial sites. Their bodies are not in the ground. The text records this observation without offering an explanation. Uriel tells him that this earth was inhabited by a people who were placed here before the sons of Adam. The Je'ez term for them is not Adamawi, the standard word for Adam's descendants. It is a compound that translates, in Dr. Kirsch's rendering, as the first placed, beings shaped in a form similar to humanity but not descended from Adam. Not fallen angels, not Nephilim, a separate creation. The account describes them as having lived on the earth for a period the text specifies using a numerical construction that does not resolve cleanly into a modern figure. The three translators produce three different numbers. The lowest is roughly 40,000 years. The highest is over 100,000. What all three agree on is that the number is not symbolic. The grammar is the grammar of measurement, not metaphor. The passage then describes what happened to them. The G's uses a verbal construction that Dr. Isaac translated in his unpublished notes as they were unmade, not destroyed, not killed, unmade. The world they lived in was cleared. The structures they built were buried. The animals they lived among were replaced. And then, according to the account, the earth was prepared again, and a second humanity was placed on it. The sons of Adam. The line the Bible we have preserved records as beginning in Genesis. Before we move on to the next passage, stop for a second. What you just heard about the first placed and the unmaking of the prior world is the part that changes everything. But it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Jez passage. The three translators' figures. The unmaking verb. It's all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back. Because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. What makes this account difficult to dismiss as isolated Ethiopian mysticism is that it does not sit alone. The same claim that a prior humanity existed on this earth and was removed before the current one appears in the surviving records of at least 3 ancient civilizations that had no known contact with the tradition that produced Enoch. The Sumerian king list, preserved in multiple cuneiform copies dating to the early 2nd millennium BCE, records the reigns of 8 kings who ruled before the flood. The earliest of them, Alulim of Eridu, is listed as reigning for 28,800 years. The 8th, Ubaratutu of Shuruppak, is listed at 18,600. The total antediluvian period across the 8 reigns totals 241,200 years. Modern Assyriologists treat these numbers as symbolic or ceremonial. The Sumerian scribes who copied them treated them as records. The kings are named, their cities are named, their orders of succession are specified. Alongside the kings, Sumerian tradition preserves the Apkallu, 7 sages sent by the god Enki to civilize the earliest humans. The Apkallu are described in the Bit Mizeri incantation tablets as beings who lived among an earlier population, taught them writing and mathematics and metallurgy, and then departed when their work was finished. The tablets specify that this happened before the flood. Before, in the surviving cuneiform, the making of the men we now are, the Babylonian priest Berossus, writing in Greek around 280 BCE, summarized the same tradition for his Macedonian rulers. He described 10 kings who reigned for a total of 432,000 years before a great flood ended their world. His account was preserved in fragments by the church historian Eusebius. The fragments name a prior race of beings the Greek renders as undatai, translated variously as the repulsive ones or the outcasts, who taught the antediluvian population and were later removed. In Egypt, the Turin king list, a papyrus catalogued at the Museo Egizio in Turin under inventory number 1874, records a sequence of rulers preceding the first human pharaoh. The list begins with the reign of gods, moves to a period called the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, and only then reaches the pharaohs known from dynastic history. The papyrus is damaged, but the surviving reign lengths for the pre-pharaonic rulers total, in the best current reconstruction, by the Danish Egyptologist Kim Ryholt, over 36,000 years. 4 separate ancient traditions on 3 separate continents, describing a period of habitation on this earth that precedes the current human line and ends in a discontinuity. Enoch is the 5th, and beyond those 5, the pattern continues. The Hindu Puranic literature describes a cycle of 4 yugas within a greater cycle called a manvantara, at the end of which the earth is cleared and repopulated under a new Manu, a new progenitor. The Vishnu Purana specifies that 14 manvantaras make up a single kalpa, and that the current human line descends from Vivasvata Manu, the 7th in the sequence. The 6 Manus before Vivasvata are named. Their descendants are named. The account is not framed as allegory, it is framed as chronology. The Hopi tradition of the American Southwest records that the present world is the 4th in a sequence. 3 prior worlds existed and were destroyed, and each destruction was followed by the placement of a new population on a prepared earth. The elders who preserve the account specify the mechanisms of each destruction, which include fire, ice, and a shifting of the sky. The Aztec calendar stone records 5 suns, or eras, 4 of which have already ended. Each ending is dated, and each is described as a wholesale replacement of the beings that lived in that era. The Codex Chimalpopoca, preserved at the Biblioteca Nacional de Antropología y Historia in Mexico City, dates the end of the fourth sun to a period that, in the best current reconstruction, falls within the same window the Ge'ez account of the unmaking implies. 7 traditions, 5 continents, all describing a sequence in which the earth has been used before, and the beings who used it have been cleared, and the current human line is not the first line to occupy this ground. What Enoch adds to the pattern is a mechanism. The other traditions record the fact of a prior period and the fact of a break. They do not describe how the break happened, or who caused it, or what became of the beings who were there before. The Ge'ez passages preserve those details, and it is those details that appear to have caused the specific concern in Jerome's memorandum. The Axum text describes the unmaking as a deliberate act, not a natural catastrophe, not a flood, in the Genesis sense, though a flood is part of the account. The passage names the agent as the sky binding, the same Ge'ez compound that appears in Sumerian and pre-Sumerian material to describe the invisible force surrounding the earth that modern physics identifies as the geomagnetic field. The account describes the sky binding, weakening past a threshold, then failing entirely. The result is described as 3 days, during which the boundary between what the text calls the upper deep and the surface no longer holds. During those 3 days, according to the Enochic account, the first placed were removed. The text does not describe how. It describes only what was left afterward. Empty structures, cleared land, a biosphere that had to be repopulated from what the account calls the seed vaults. Storage sites, the text implies, were maintained by beings not native to the Earth's surface. Then a period the text specifies as 40 generations passes. During those 40 generations, the account says, the Earth was prepared. New plants were introduced. New animals were bred. A geography that would support a different kind of habitation was assembled. The Ge'ez text is specific about the manner of the preparation. It describes what it calls the pouring of the second waters, an event in which the shape of the seas was altered and land that had been below the surface was raised. It describes the introduction of grains that had not existed before, and animals that had been bred, in the Ge'ez phrasing, from smaller stock. It describes the placement of what the text calls the first fires in the places that would become the earliest human settlements. At the end of the 40 generations, the sons of Adam were placed on the prepared earth. Genesis begins there. The Bible we have preserved begins at the moment the second humanity is placed on a world that had already been used once. The Ge'ez text does not describe the sons of Adam as arriving, it describes them as being placed. The verb the passage uses is transitive. There is a subject performing the placement, and the sons of Adam are the object. The text does not clarify who the subject is. That question is one of the details the 4 Jerome passages preserve, and the Western canonical tradition does not. The scientific record contains evidence that has been interpreted through conventional frameworks but sits comfortably alongside the Enochic account when the account is read at face value. The Denisovans, an archaic human population first identified from a finger bone found in Denisova Cave in southern Siberia in 2010, are known from genetic analysis to have interbred with the ancestors of modern humans, and then to have disappeared from the fossil record within a window that current dating places between 40 and 50,000 years ago. The mechanism of their disappearance is not established. Climate change is proposed. Competition with modern humans is proposed. Neither proposal fully accounts for the speed of the disappearance. Homo floresiensis, discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores in 2003, is a diminutive hominin species that shared the Earth with modern humans until roughly 50,000 years ago. It possessed stone tools of a sophistication inconsistent with its brain size. It vanished from the record within a window that overlaps the disappearance of the Denisovans. Its extinction has no established cause. Homo naledi, discovered by Lee Berger in the Rising Star Cave System in South Africa in 2013, appears to have practiced deliberate burial of its dead. The species is dated to between 236,000 and 335,000 years ago. It possessed a brain roughly 1/3 the size of a modern human's. It nonetheless carried its dead into a deep and difficult chamber and left them there. The behavior implies a form of cognition that current models of hominin evolution do not predict for a brain of that size. Göbekli Tepe, the ritual complex in southeastern Turkey excavated by Klaus Schmidt beginning in 1994, is currently dated to approximately 11,600 years ago. It predates the accepted invention of agriculture, pottery, and writing. Its stone pillars weigh up to 20 tons. The engineering required to quarry, transport, and place those pillars is not compatible with the archaeological picture of the population that supposedly built them. The site was deliberately buried between 9,000 and 8,000 years ago. It was not abandoned. It was interred. The Younger Dryas boundary, dated to approximately 12,800 years ago, marks a rapid climate reversal, accompanied by mass extinctions across North America and evidence in ice cores of a global impact event. Enoch, if the GES chronology is read at face value, dates the unmaking of the first placed to a period broadly consistent with the Younger Dryas. None of this proves that a prior humanity existed on this earth and was removed before the sons of Adam were placed on the prepared ground. The evidence is circumstantial. The manuscripts are restricted, the translations are unpublished. Peer review has not been permitted on the relevant passages. That is the honest state of the record. What is also the honest state of the record is that the Book of Enoch, in its complete JS form, preserved in Ethiopia for 1400 years, contains an account describing exactly that sequence, in specific numerical detail, using vocabulary that does not resolve into any other known Semitic corpus. The Sumerian, Babylonian, and Egyptian traditions record the same sequence with different vocabulary. 4 archaic human populations, dated by conventional means, appeared and vanished within the windows Enoch specifies. A global impact event occurred at the boundary the GES chronology names, and the Christian Church, at the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE, and in the private correspondence of Jerome in the years that followed, took specific measures to remove the passages describing this sequence from the canon of Western scripture. The passages still exist. They exist in a monastic library in Axum, in a bracketed footnote removed from the first edition of Ephraim Isaac's translation, in an unpublished dissertation at Tübingen, and on a microfilm reel at the Hill Museum in Collegeville, Minnesota. They have been sitting there for 40 years, or 1,700 years, depending on how you count. Nobody has destroyed them. Nobody has forged them. They were simply not translated, not published, and not put in front of the audience that would have found them. That is a different, and perhaps more effective, kind of suppression than burning would have been. Enoch, in the account preserved by the churches that never answered to Rome, describes a second world built on the cleared ground of a first. A humanity placed on prepared earth, told nothing of what came before, given a beginning at Genesis that starts in the middle of a story. We are the sons of Adam. The record of the sons before us is still there. It was never actually destroyed. It was only removed from the version we were allowed to read.